I'm from the Florida Sufi community and the co-founder for the nonprofit Unity, Peace, and Prayer. And we have an announcement actually to make. We're so excited that the South Florida Sufi community will host a Sufi weekend, finally after years. And it's going to be March 6th through the 8th. And if you like more details, you can connect with us at connect@unitypeaceprayer.com. And for today's talk, it gives me, or class, it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you a special guest tonight. That's Nura Laird. And Nura is an extraordinary woman, truly a master healer and an extraordinary light in this world. She was born in Philadelphia and graduated from Smith College and UMass at Amherst with a master's degree in education. She's a pioneer in the fields of holistic education, spiritual peacemaking, and integrative cancer care. She also co-founded the University of Spiritual Healing and Sufism and the Shafi Institute. Nura is a graduate faculty member, dean, and chair of the Master of Divinity in Spiritual Peacemaking at the University of Sufism and Healing, at the University of Healing and Sufism. A longtime student of Sufism, Nura was blessed to spend many, many years near our guide, Sidi Muhammad al-Jamal. Nura loves to dive deeply into the inner work that the path to God calls for and brings her unique gift into the world in an extraordinary way. Nura's passion is to help restore the love, the real love and the real peace to families and guide the clients and her students to bring more love and peace into any relationship in this world. And those who know her, they know that she has succeeded in this, blessed, heartfelt goal. One of Nura's gifts is to be deeply present with people, facing profound life challenges and difficulties. She shows us how to be the earth for each other and to be really, to be the real holy tree, giving love and mercy and cherishing each moment we have together. Nura teaches us tonight on forgiveness, on the way to love. So you have the floor. Welcome. Welcome, my sister Nura.
Thank you, sweetie. Thank you. It's beautiful. You have a beautiful way with words.
It's teamwork.
You make us feel really loved and welcome. It's so beautiful. Thank you.
You are. Oh my God, this is an exciting, beautiful.
All right. Well, let's begin with the prayer to unity and the unity of all the prophets.
Mm-hmm.
La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. Muhammadin Rasulullah. Alayhi salatullah. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. Ibrahim Rasulullah. Alayhi salatullah. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. Musa Rasulullah. Alayhi salatullah. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. Isa Rasulullah. Alayhi salatullah. And then our prayer for peace. Allahumma anta salam, wa minka salam, wa ilayka yaudu salam. Tabarakta Rabbana wa ta'alaita, ya dal jalali wal ikram. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Welcome everybody. I'm looking at the list of names and phone numbers and so happy to see some old friends. So nice to connect with you all. And for those of you whom I don't know, welcome to you too. I look forward someday to being with you and meeting you. The topic tonight is forgiveness on the way to love. And the subtitle is When Tava Isn't Enough. I feel a little bit like a heretic saying that, but I'll share with you why I use that phrase, when Tava isn't enough. Well, it came to me in Salat. Of course, not everything that comes to us in Salat is really from Allah. It could easily be from the shaitan. But I wanted to share, just full disclosure, that I've had to go through a pretty extensive process in letting go of some of my blames and judgments of certain people. And I've really been focusing on it, especially for the last couple years. And I found personally that when I sit and do a astaghfirullah, well, I should say first, Sidi says that regret is like the precursor to tawbah. It's the first step. And he says that regret is actually put in us by Allah. It's not something that originates in our own heart or our own emotions. When we start feeling regret, it's Allah who's given us that regret, which when I read that, I found that to be extremely comforting and important. So for sincere tawbah, according to the way Sidi sets it up, we first feel regret and we recognize the regret comes from Allah. So I've had lots of regret about certain things that I've done and said and thought. But when I start with the regret and then do astaghfirullah lazim, honestly, more often than not, it hasn't walked me all the way through to the process of letting go and loving the other person. I mean, I feel like if I go all the way, I'm going to find love and unity with that person. That sounds kind of radical, but I feel like that's what our teaching is. We're all one. We're brothers and sisters, and we're meant to love one another. And so when I don't love, then I'm looking at what do I need to do? And this kind of sounds radical too, but I've really become aware in the last few years that I don't want to carry to my grave anything left undone if I can do it, if I can walk all the way through it. And sometimes you can't, and through no fault of one's own. Sometimes we just can't walk all the way through it for many different reasons. And I won't get into that, but I'm just saying personally, that's become a really important reality for me, to pay attention to what I'm carrying around with me and to ask myself periodically, do I want to carry this to my grave? And do I want to stand before Allah with this? So that's what really plunged me into this very deep process of looking at how can I complete my tawbah. And like I said, it's taken about 2 years, I think. And so it's led me on a journey of different steps. And so finally, when I got to the point where I felt like I really got to where I wanted to be, where I really felt the love and the unity for a person, then I was looking back to say, okay, what happened? What did I go through? And I figured out that there were basically 7 stages in the process for me. And that comes from the Sufi teachings, and it comes from Some of you are familiar with the 12-step program. Some of it comes from that. It's an amalgam of many different things that I have been walking with in my life. And I think the Sufi teachings are certainly primary, especially in terms of giving me the goal of wanting to get to love and unity. That didn't come from anywhere else but my path of Sufism. So that's what I'm sharing. And I want to share it not just in a way of telling you about it, but I want to share it in a way where we give time for you, if you choose to, if you choose to accept it, and this tape will self-destruct in 5 seconds. No, if you choose to, give you time to try on these steps for yourself about any kind of situation that you want to choose in your life. So first, I want to just start with a couple quotes from the Quran just to set context. So in reference to the Battle of Uhud, when the Prophet ﷺ and his followers failed in their duty, and according to all available accounts, he did not even reproach any of them for what they had done. And that's a quote from Muhammad Assad's Message of the Quran, page 108, and it's a footnote. This is what the Quran says about it. This is what Allah said to the Prophet ﷺ right after the Battle of Uhud. It was by the mercy of Allah that you dealt with them gently, dealt with your followers. Had you been harsh or hard of heart, they would have scattered away from you. Pardon them and seek forgiveness for them, and consult with them on the conduct of affairs. And when you are resolved, then put your whole trust in Allah. Surely Allah loves those who put their trust in Him. And that's from the Quran, Surah 3, verse 159. And he's referring to when the Prophet's ﷺ's team or his side, the people that he was fighting with, some of them he told them to hold their position. I think it was at the back, and they were the bow and arrow people. And they thought that the battle was over, and so they left their position and went around the side and came into the middle of the battle. And so they weren't doing what the Prophet ﷺ had told them to do. And so it was partly because of that the strategy didn't work. And so Allah is telling him to not be harsh, be gentle with them, pardon them, and seek forgiveness for them, and even consult with them on how to proceed forward. And then basically, ultimately, trust Allah. And then, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, another quote from the Quran. That which is with Allah is better and more enduring for those who believe and who place their trust in their Lord. And those who avoid the major wrongdoings and shameful deeds, and when they are angry, forgive. And that's from Quran, Surah 42, ayat 36 and 37. And about this, Sidi writes, the knowers pardon sins that anger them, suppressing their anger and forgiving those who oppress them, because forgiveness and tolerance, not revenge, are their natural qualities. This is one of the moral qualities of the beauty. They overlook those who ignorantly wrong them, asking Allah's reward and forgiveness for their own shortcomings. They overlook those who ignorantly wrong them, asking Allah's reward and forgiveness for their own shortcomings. This is from Sidi's book, Tafsir, and it's pages 130 to 131. So I had a teacher, a Sufi teacher a long time ago, who used to teach us that we had to overlook, and I tried and I couldn't do it at the time, and I didn't have the teachings that I've since learned from Sidi on healing and on walking through our pictures and our voices and our veils. And that's a lot of that's the context for a lot of the steps that I'm going to be presenting in a minute, that now that I have this way of healing and walking for myself, I'm able to get to the point eventually where I can overlook. And he says, overlook those who ignorantly wrong them. So he's saying we need to understand that even though it feels like they're doing something that we don't like on purpose, basically they don't know. They don't know the bigger picture. They don't know what Allah's guidance is, what Allah's making. There's just a lot that they don't know. And so basically, we need to take the attitude that it's kind of like Jesus said, forgive them, O Lord, for they know not what they do. It's basically the same thing as that. And then Sidi also says, forgiving those who harm you is better than being patient. You know, he says patience is so important. It's the last quality, blah, blah, blah. We all know that. But he says, forgiving those who harm you is better than being patient. And prayer on their behalf is a lofty ethic of the genuine believers. When people turn away from you, consider this a blessing from your Lord. Because if they had not turned away, you would have been busy with them rather than observing your obedience to Allah. Therefore, if you are afflicted by their coming to you, or with their praise and glorification, beware of your fascination with them, and thank Allah for concealing your bad qualities from them. High bar. So that's from The Migration of the Truthful Traveler, page 53. Sidi writes, be very careful and know how to give and how to care for everything through walking and understanding. For that, he who understands the reality of God is very soft and carries all the love and all the peace and all the mercy for everything, because he understands that everything carries the reality of Allah. For that, when he is walking on the earth, he is very soft. That's from the Divine Flute of the Deep Knowing, page 7. Sufism teaches us that Tawbah is the first step in every station. Tawbah is return to Allah, return to the unity. Return after leaving Allah, after creating some kind of separation, returning to connection and unity, and even better, returning to the love. Love in its highest form, according to Sufi teachings, is full unity. La ilaha illallah. At this level of love, there's no separation of any kind. So the need for Tawbah implies that we've made some kind of separation. The highest love cannot be achieved in that state of separation. So how do we get to the highest love? What's in the way, and what prevents us from letting go, from complete Tawbah? Sidi and the Quran set a really high bar for us. And, you know, we're not prophets and we're all walking, and so we are where we are. But it's good to know where you want to go, like to have a sense of where you're headed. To live this way requires so much letting go of blame, judgment, grudges, letting go of a certain person, letting go of a thing that happened, letting go of a thing or an idea or a dearly held belief, letting go of some physical ailments or illness, letting go of good health. Letting go often involves forgiving ourselves, forgiving another, and especially forgiving Allah. How do we truly let go and get to the place of full forgiveness? I think that I put in there letting go of Allah because I find that there is a way that it's often unconscious that we're blaming Allah for what happened. I think when it's conscious, it's actually better because then the person can really address it and walk through it. But I find in many cases that people don't know that there's a subtle blame of Allah in there. And so they focus on, well, should I work on forgiving myself because I blame myself? And it's like, well, yeah, of course. But I think in this journey, if we're going to really complete it, we have to see the subtle places where we're blaming Allah and walk through that too. So, as I said, I've been really exploring this whole subject for the past year, really 2 years, trying to get to complete forgiveness and unity in a specific place in my life and a specific couple specific relationships. And there's been many stages and many states in the process. And I've learned a lot of things that yet have gotten in the way of forgiving for me. And what I learned can be summed up in 7 themes or steps that I've had to walk through. And I don't want to present this as though I've walked through them and I'm done, because I'm sure Allah is going to give me another occasion where I have a really hard time walking all the way through to love and unity. And so, well, there are already occasions. They're just not as close up and personal. They're more distant in Washington, for example. But anyway, it's, there's always going to be places in our lives where if we want to, if we want to get to love and unity and really walk all the way with what Allah is putting in our lives, then there's always going to be somewhere that we look where we have to do this kind of walking. So these are the 7 themes or steps that I've found. And what I'm going to do is list them, and then I'm going to explain each one. And after I explain each one, I'm going to give you an opportunity to see if you can work with that step. The first one's letting go of investments and attachments. The second is letting go of beliefs and expectations. The third is healing unmet needs. The fourth is dropping pride and arrogance. The fifth is owning our mirrors. The sixth is surrendering to Allah, basically surrendering to what Allah is making and what Allah gave us in our life that was so hard. And the seventh is finding gratitude. So, first step, letting go of investments and attachments. Now, I'm writing about this in the Sufi SSC newsletter, and the first installment was in the first one, and there will be another installment, another. I think there's 3, but maybe there will be more. So some of this was in that article if you read it or remember it. But I just really want to bring these things home before we go into an exercise with it. So letting go of investments and attachments. We have a strong investment or attachment to believing, for example, that someone harmed us, or someone was impolite to us, or someone was mean to us. And within that, we generally tend to see ourselves as innocent and pure, and seeing the other person as unfair, unjust, or wrong. We see it that we are the victim and the other's the oppressor. It's our story, and it's all one-sided. We're not seeing the whole picture. Behind this perspective, there might be a long-held belief that things in life are unfair, life in general is unjust, no one loves or appreciates us, or something like that. An example of a story along these lines would be like if someone feels that they've been bullied, and they're absolutely sure that that's what happened, and that the other person was the bully and they were the victim. And these stories, I mean, we know better. We know that a story is just voices and pictures, but somehow we walk around carrying some of our stories. I'm sure that many of us have gotten rid of a lot of our stories as we've walked and healed. But, some of our stories are really sticky, and so we're attached to them. We're invested in them. So that's what this first step is about, is really looking at which stories am I still attached to, and what's my investment in them? Why am I holding on to this particular story when other ones I've let go of? Another common kind of attachment, which I alluded to before, but I just want to go into it a little bit more to help you when you work this, is the attachment to being right. We have the story and we think, well, I'm right. That's really what happened. And the other person was wrong. And if I'm right, it's automatically making the other person wrong. I don't think there's any way about it, unless you're really advanced and you feel like you're both right. But, that takes some walking to get to. So if they disagree with me, I'm right and they're wrong because they don't have the same opinion I have. And right and wrong is basically a very simplistic way of seeing things and thinking. There are so many shades of gray in much of life and in many of the things that we are in conflict about or that we argue about. If I'm right, then I'm attached to being right. I'm invested in it. What is this about for me? That's the thing. We don't usually get to the point of saying, why am I so attached to being right? We just stop with, I'm right, they're wrong. And that's what CD calls stopping with the pictures. Why is it so important to me that I'm going to fight for being right? Because that's what we do. That there's a very small aside. For many years in my marriage with Wadud, I didn't know this until like within the last probably 15 years, and we've been married 50. So for many of those years before then, we had all kinds of fights. We were just like most couples, we had lots of fights. And once I finally learned about being right, like what that is as a concept, I realized looking back that every single thing we fought about was essentially both of us thinking that we were right and that the other person was wrong. Even things like, do you know where my keys are? Well, they're right where you left them. Well, I can't remember where I left them. Well, what's wrong with you that you can't remember where you left them? I'm right and you're wrong. It's like, you're home later than you said you were going to be. No, I didn't say that. Yes, you did. No, I didn't. I'm right and you're wrong. I mean, I won't go into too many examples. I mean, I could think of probably 100 from our own history. Those two were from our history. But I'm just trying to flesh it out a little bit for you so that you can see what I mean about our attachments and investments and what a big deal being right is. So I want to give you a chance to work with this. So I'd like everybody to close your eyes and think of something in your life that's difficult that involves another person specifically. Okay, and I'm imagining that you've had enough time, I hope. And now put the other person in front of you. Like with your eyes closed, just imagine that they're in front of you and that you're standing facing them. And at this stage, you're naturally upset in one way or another. You're upset with them. Something happened and you didn't like it. And take a look at your story about it. What are you saying to yourself that it was that happened? And just notice the value you place on this story, how important it is to you. That value you place on it is your investment or your attachment. It's one of them. Just notice the way that I don't want to accuse you and I don't want to assume, but when we have stories like this, we really tend to hold onto them. Like it's as if our fists are clenching onto them. It's really what happened, right? That person really did do that to me or whatever. Whoops. Sorry, I have a notice about a Mammy's class in half an hour. And so what's inside of the attachment to the story? What's so important to you about this story? Now, this is going to take some unpacking. So go into your heart and see if you can tell what's sitting in the space between you and the story that it's so tightly held. What are you fighting for? You know, are you right? Was it unfair? Was it mean? See if you can get to some beliefs that are inside this story for you, things that you concluded. And even if you want to, you can write some of them down. And then we're just going to spend one more little minute on this. The beliefs, are they brand new? Or are they things that you've had for a long time before you ever knew this person? That's usually the case, that they're not new. Okay. Now, there's a lot more we could say about that, but we're going to move on to the next step. The next step is letting go of expectations and beliefs. Well, we just started addressing beliefs, like, are you willing to let go of that belief? And the thing is, it's hard to let go of beliefs. We're attached to them because our life has reinforced or proven the belief true many, many times, depending on how old we are, many times. And that's the thing about our beliefs. They do them true. It's kind of like, you know how gravity bends light? Light bends around the earth because of the gravity in the earth. Well, our beliefs bend our experience. You could say they're the filter through which we see our experience. Either way, but it's just like, because we think it's going to be that way, then it is that way. And this is Allah. Allah's hand is in that, trying to show us, well, if you could clear the veil of this belief, then I won't have to bring these experiences to you in your life. I think that's the key. So expectations, let's look at those, because I'm grouping expectations and beliefs together here. We expect and believe that people should be the way we want them to be, right? I mean, we might have a wide range of what we want them to be, but anybody who's outside of that range, we get upset because they're not the way we want them to be. You know, we might have a whole lot of compassion. We might have, 310 degrees of space for the way people are, but that other 50 degrees, it's like, you better not step into that sphere because I don't like you if you do. You know what I mean? So we expect and believe that people should be the way we want them to be. This was the way I was with one dude. Oh my God. Astaghfirullah. I've apologized to him so many times for how I used to be. And we expect and believe that we should be treated the way we want to be treated. And we often want others to feel what we feel, to act the way we act, to believe what we believe, in general, to be just the way we are. Those of you who are married or who used to be married, just think about it. Do you or did you want your partner to be a certain way? And because they weren't, was that part of the problem with why, dude, I wanted him to be emotional like me and to have the same opinions I had. One of the biggest fights we had in our history was about capital punishment. He wasn't against it and I was, and it was a really strongly held belief. It still is really, really strongly held. And it was a deal breaker for me many times when we would talk about it. I just couldn't believe that he couldn't see it the way I did. And I got really mad at him for that. I look back on it now, it's embarrassing, astaghfirullah, it's just the way I was. But, over the years, it's taken me half a century to figure out that this is the way we humans are. And that's just how we are, and it's okay. But it's good to get a handle on it, to start to see, okay, is this wrecking love? Is it wrecking our relationship? So the reason we're so strong about how we want people to be is because that's what makes us feel safe and comfortable. And deep, deep down inside, we feel unsafe. And so we want to try to get people to conform to a way that'll help us feel safe. It's really simple in a way. So when people aren't the way we need them to be so that we're safe and comfortable, we judge them, we make them wrong, we blame them, we create separation because they're not meeting our expectations. We don't give them enough space to be who they are. And this is really good for us parents to really look at, are we doing this with our kids? I struggled so hard with this, and then I finally realized that Allah set this up this way. We have these visions of how we think our kids are going to be, or who we think they're going to be when they grow up, or what their work's going to be, or their career, or their destiny, or their life purpose. Because when they're first born, we see them and we see their soul and we think, wow, this person's headed to be blah, blah, blah. And then time passes, years, and they get rebellious or they don't conform to how we want them to be. And we get so upset because we expected and believed that they were supposed to be a certain way and they're just not fitting our picture. And we're basically not giving them the space to be themselves. An example, my examples sometimes are really funny. I'm the Jewish mother who wanted her daughter to be an acupuncturist, not a doctor. I really wanted one of my kids to be an acupuncturist because I felt like I wasn't, it was too, by the time they were a little grown, I was in my 40s and I just didn't have it in me to go to acupuncture school, but I love acupuncture. So I wanted one of them to be that, and neither of them is. I've gotten over it, but it's a joke in our family. It's like, you think you still might want to go to acupuncture school? My daughter, the acupuncturist, rather than my son, the doctor. It's really a riot, but I did want that. It was an expectation and a hope. So our expectations flow from our deep beliefs, and the expectations reinforce our beliefs. So for example, if I believe that people are going to be unfair to me, then I expect them to be unfair to me. And then it's self-fulfilling. So this is just showing you the link between beliefs and expectations. So in that case, over and over, I have the experience of people being unfair to me. Duh. In other words, my beliefs shape my expectations, which shape my outer reality. So let's pause and take a look at this. Go back to the same scenario or person that you were focusing on before, and just take some time to put that person in front of your heart. Put them in front of you so that you're facing them. And just take a look at, what are you expecting of them, or what did you expect? What did you believe that they should be, or that they should do, or that they should be like? Take your time with this. And if you want, you can write down the expectations that they didn't meet or the beliefs that they didn't fit into. I'll give you another minute to just begin to address this step. Okay. Okay, we're walking through this together, so don't expect yourself to be finished or to be at the space of forgiveness and love and unity, because, we're just on our way. The third step, healing unmet needs. So this is another one that's very much lodged in the subconscious. We often don't know exactly what we're needing. I mean, certain things are obvious. We need food, clothing, and shelter. But many of the things aren't. So let's go back to safety and comfort. We need safety and comfort. And with this particular person, maybe we just don't feel it. Or maybe with an old relationship, you just didn't have safety and comfort. So that was an unmet need. And as long as that need is not met, it leaves like a hole in our being. And this is part of the reason we can't go all the way into love and unity, because we're carrying around that hole and probably a bunch of different holes from a lot of different unmet needs. The thing is, there's nothing wrong. I mean, it doesn't feel good to have an unmet need. We would love it for the universe and everybody in our life to meet all our needs. But this is the way Allah set it up. It's inevitable. And most of the unmet needs stem from early in our life. So, for example, we need safety, as I mentioned before. We need trust. We need love. We need support, like knowing that somebody has our back. We need to be seen, understood. Those three kind of go together. And I find that that's one of the most universal unmet needs, is that people have never, since their early childhood, felt really deeply seen, heard, and understood. And it's nobody's fault. It's basically the adults that we were around at that time didn't really know any better. Let's say that it was ignorance. They just didn't know. One of my big ones is respect. So we need respect and acknowledgement. We need joy. We need fulfillment. So that's just some of them. There's many more, but I wanted to pick some that are really, really common in hopes that I was touching a chord by mentioning those. Like I said, it's inevitable. No matter how wonderful our parents and our life has been, there's always going to be needs that haven't been met. So we're set on track to try and get those needs met from childhood. As we grow, the needs are usually still unsatisfied. So we try to get others.
Be forgiving, and I feel that.
You need to mute, please. Nahidas Fauzia, please mute. And so let's see where we are. So we try to get others to meet our needs, to fill in those holes. When they don't, then we're disappointed. And then our early beliefs that life isn't okay, that it's unfair, they're reinforced. So the thing is that Allah is infinite and omnipotent. So Allah really can fill in all those holes. It doesn't always occur to us to turn to Allah to fill our needs. So that's some of the medicine for this. But first, in the particular relationship that you've been focused on, or the encounter, I want you to really look at that person again and look at what happened and see what needs of yours weren't met in that situation or aren't being met now. And if you can't think of it, feel in your body where you're feeling the impact of this relationship, and take your time to breathe into that place and travel into it, and then see, what is it saying to you? What is it showing you? And by extension, what need might that be pointing to? Just take your time. I'll say some of the needs again, just in case it helps you to figure out what you were needing, and there definitely could be more than one. Safety, trust, love, support, to feel that the person has your back, to be seen, like really seen for who you are, to be really heard, to be listened to be understood. Need for respect, acknowledgement, need for joy and fulfillment. That's some of them. And if you want, you can write down the ones that you've gotten. And then wherever you're feeling this in your body is probably where the hole is that I was referring to, the place where you're holding that unmet need. Allah can fill that in for you. So turn your heart towards Allah and ask Allah to help you. And let's do La ilaha illallah for this. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. La ilaha illallah. 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 La ilaha. La ilaha illallah. 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 La ila La ilaha illallah. 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 Breathe in and receive. And if you have a sense that anything's coming in, allow it to fill that hole. Okay, that's just one more thing about this. When we allow Allah to fill those gaps, those holes from unmet needs, then the belief that's linked to that need, like we're never going to get the support we need or no one will ever understand me, those beliefs start to dissolve. And then when that happens, we stop blaming others who aren't meeting the need because it's filled. And then we're able to allow them to help meet the need. It's actually Allah meets it first, because Allah is infinite and has no scarcity of what Allah can give us, no matter how many needs we have, no matter how needy we are. In fact, we're supposed to be needy towards Allah. That's the slave. That's the essential goal. So anyway, then oftentimes then others show up in a different way because we're not looking at anything through that hole, through the veil of that hole. And it doesn't always work this way, but it often does. So then we get a double prize. We get Allah meeting the need, and we get people showing up differently so that we don't feel that need anymore. Okay, the next step, dropping pride and arrogance. Well, I'm going to make a bold statement here. I think that we all have pride and arrogance. And the reason I say that is because when we think we're right about our story, or we think we're right about who we think we are, or we think we're right about what we think God is, or we think we're right about who the Prophet ﷺ was, or we think we're right about what heaven and hell are, all these things, any place where we're thinking we're right, pride and arrogance are in there. Even if we think we're right that we're worthless, that we're not okay, even if we think we're right that we don't deserve God's love, it's funny because there's actually pride in there, because there's, humiliation too, but there's pride within it because we could swear that that's true about ourselves. Pride and arrogance are based in thinking that we know something. That we're right, not us. So we do all have some form of pride or arrogance. Some have more, some have less, but I think we all have it. It's just part of being human. We believe that what we think and perceive is really the truth, and we think we're absolutely right about it. And by the way, that therefore the other person's wrong. In walking to Allah, as you know, there's no room for pride and arrogance. We have to drop it. On this Sufi journey, we're headed to become servants of Allah. A servant bows humbly. A servant does not insist he's right, unless he's speaking the true teachings like there is one God. A servant trusts what Allah makes with us, and a servant trusts that Allah knows best, that Allah knows best, not that I know. From a place of deep bowing, a servant looks to Allah as the knower and the cause. Am I willing to embrace the humility and the debasement that Allah gave me through this negative experience with this person? This was one of the biggest steps for me when I realized that part of the reason I hated the person was because the experience made me feel humiliated and debased. And it was like I was outraged. It's like, how could they? I mean, first I needed respect anyway. That was one of my sort of cardinal needs, and I felt like I wasn't getting it. But then underneath that, it was like, how could they make me feel this way? Like I'm lower. And then the big shift came when I realized that, first of all, Allah gave me the experience. Allah was teaching me about the qualities of khafid and mudil, constriction and dishonoring, two of Allah's divine qualities. How can I truly taste these qualities if I don't have this experience? If I want to get to the point of being in the Baka, then I need to know all the qualities intimately. Not just from my head, but I need to taste them in my being. Well, some of the qualities I don't like the Avenger, but I need to know them. I need to have experiences that move me towards embracing and embodying those qualities. So once I finally figured that out, I realized that this experience that I hated, or the person or whatever, it was teaching me about humility and debasement and dishonoring and being dishonored, and that I had to know those things if I was going to fully know Allah. So that really helped me to accept. So go back to your own experience again and put the person in front of you with all that you're hearing and all that you're realizing about yourself and whatever you've written down. And take a look. Was there any humiliation? Was the person trying to, or is that what it led to? Did it lead to you feeling like you were lower or less than? Or that you were small and constricted? Or did you feel dishonored? Now, I'm not talking about abuse, of course, and I'm not talking about being a doormat and letting people walk all over you. There's sometimes a fine line between what I'm talking about and those experiences, which, of course, we don't want to encourage anybody to embrace. And it's okay if you can't find that humiliation at this point in the experience. You know, these might not be your steps. I'm just sharing them and giving you a chance to explore yourself. Okay, we're going to go on to the next one, the fifth one, owning our mirrors. As C.D. writes in The Reality of Gnosis, everything that manifests to you is from you, for you, and is you. Everything that manifests to you is from you, for you, and is you. And I interpret this to mean what comes to all of us is for us always. We're all reflections of each other. And ultimately, what comes to us, what manifests to us, is from Allah. We were created from one soul, and even though we appear to be different and unique, at the deepest level, we're all one. So we're like fractals. We're pieces of one mirror, all reflecting back to each other our various parts and qualities. This is, I think, really hard work, this step. And I think it's really advanced work. And I think that's why The Reality of Gnosis was one of the final books that C.D. gave us, of all the books that are sort of like manuals of how to walk. And that book is, he must say it 1,000 times in that book, everything's a mirror. So I take that to mean that I have to learn to examine my own part in my relationships and to take responsibility for what's triggered within me and search for ways in which the other person reflects hidden aspects inside of me. What is there in this person with whom I'm struggling that also exists in some form inside of me? It might not be exactly the same, or it might not be to the same degree. So let's take something like deceit, because most of us on this path would really abhor deceit. We'd want to be honest. So lots of deceit. So normally, on the face of it, we look at ourselves and we go, I'm not deceitful. You know, I want truth. I want to stand for the truth. I want to be in the truth all the time. So I look at the deceit that manifests to me in another person, and I see what it looks like, and I really face it. And then I turn my gaze inside and I say, Allah, can you help me to see any kind of deceit inside myself? Well, what comes up for me immediately is that deceit is simply illusion. And I have lots of illusions about just the things we've been talking about what really happened or what Allah was making for me in different experiences. I have illusions about who I am. I have illusions about what Allah is. I have illusions about what other people are. So I am deceiving myself. And I've convinced myself that these things are true until I don't anymore. So that's an example. The truth is that we can't change another person, but we can work on ourselves. The law doesn't change anyone until they change what is within themselves, it says in the Quran. And oftentimes when we really work on ourselves and root out some of these things, the outer relationship is different. Even when it really, 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 really seems to be that the other person is at fault, if we look at our own part, it's much more satisfying and effective towards creating the life we want in the long run. So let's do that now. Put that same person in front of you and ask yourself, what are the one or two things about this person that I most detest, or that I most can't tolerate, or that make me the most uncomfortable? And if you want, you can write them down. And then with a lot of compassion for yourself, it's like, okay, I have this that I really detest and I don't want to see about myself. And the thing I need to know is that Allah loves me anyway, and Allah sees this. Because Allah sees who I am behind it all in my fitra, and Allah loves me. So who am I to decide that I shouldn't love myself, even with this quality? And I think that the quality is more readily going to dissolve and disappear if I'm willing to really accept it and not fight with it. Because anytime we fight with something inside, it makes it harder for Allah's light to access it and to clear it. So what makes it easier for Allah's light to access it and clear it is when we just go, yeah, I have this, and we be soft about it, as Sidi says. So you can try that now, being soft about it and letting Allah in to that quality, to that place. Ya, Ya Allah, Ya Wakil. Ya Allah, Ya Wakil. Ya Allah, Ya Latif. Ya Allah, Ya Latif. Ya Allah, Ya Latif. Okay, we're going to go on to the next one. Now, remember, it took me a couple of years. So be merciful with yourself. I wasn't expecting anybody necessarily to walk all the way through these tonight, but I just wanted to give you a taste. So the next one's surrender to Allah. And it's surrender to what Allah made for me. That this experience ultimately came to me from Allah. I mean, this person, from their free will, created this experience with me and for me. But ultimately, their free will came to them from Allah. And everything's written. So even if Allah doesn't like the experience that I had, it did come from Allah. So Allah made it for me. So I was able to walk with this step when I realized that the whole situation that I was struggling with, and I'd been struggling with for a long time, came to me from Allah. Before that, I'd just been fighting, and my feet were dug in, and I wanted to make the other person wrong, and I spent years like that. But when I realized that it came to me from Allah, that made me realize that in a certain way, it's not really about the other person. My whole focus had been on that person and what they did, you know. But when I realized it came to me from Allah, I realized the focus is on me and Allah, not on that person. This is about me and Allah. How am I with Allah? Allah put that person in my path in that way. It doesn't mean the person's off the hook. It doesn't mean it's okay what they did or said. It's just changing the angle of how I look at it. So in a way, Allah used that person to give me that experience, to wake me up to myself, so that I would discover all these things that we're discovering about ourselves right now. So that was really interesting to see it that way, that Allah had used that person, that that person was a tool of Allah for me in my journey. And, you know, that person has a journey too, and I might have been a tool of Allah for them. And they might or might not have seen it that way. But it doesn't really matter to me. What really matters to me is my journey. That's the only thing that I'm really involved in. So take a look at your situation, at this person, and at what happened or what's happening. And what happens when you say to yourself, this was from Allah for me? And it's not because Allah hates you. It's not because Allah is punishing you. That's not, if you think those things and you just don't know Allah, and that's fine, because I used to think that way too. I think most of us did. But that's not why it's for you from Allah. It's for you from Allah to help you wake up to who you are and to what you carry, positive and negative. Allah just wants us to wake up, to be aware, to know ourselves so that we can know our Lord. And Allah has a wide variety of ways of doing this with us. And one of the ways is putting challenging people in our path. So just take some time with this one, looking at the whole experience and seeing if you can get your head and heart around the idea that this was from Allah for you. And please don't fault yourself if this is hard for you. We really need to give ourselves time and be gentle with ourselves, where we want to be eventually, and just let it be in Allah's hands, the rhythm and the pace for when we get there. All right, the last step, gratitude. Gratitude to Allah. And guess what? Gratitude to that person for being the occasion for me to walk through all these things. Because if I can get to full forgiveness, then I'm free. As long as I'm in blame, I'm in a prison of my own making. And that's one of the ways you know that you've gotten to full forgiveness, is you feel free. And freedom's a really great feeling. So gratitude. And what does gratitude look like? Well, I'm going to really take a high bar here. This is from 12 Step. a prayer for that person, and looking in the mirror at night for 10 days and making a prayer for goodness for that person to have goodness happen for them in their life, to want for that person what we want for ourselves. It's a manifestation of iman or faith when we want for another what we would want for ourselves. So it's that kind of a prayer. Can we do that? Can we sustain a sincere prayer for that person every night for 10 nights? So that would be one way of having gratitude. It's not, obviously not the only way. And gratitude to Allah for the whole setup, the cosmic plan around this particular experience. So try that on. Take a little time with that right now and see. You don't have to be insincere or hokey. If you're not there, you're not there. And if you're not there, just take stock and see, where are you? What are you holding? What are you holding on to? What are you attached to? What need still isn't met? So I don't feel like I've given you a full chance with each of these steps, but we have 10 more minutes, so I just want to, a little more than 10 minutes, I just want to summarize and then see if people have comments or questions. Summarizing. To arrive at forgiveness, we need to release our investments and attachments, our beliefs and expectations. Let Allah fill our unmet needs. Drop our pride and arrogance. Own our mirrors. Bow to whatever Allah is making for us in our lives. And finally, find gratitude for the whole ordeal. And for me, that was completion. By then, I was able to drop my stick and totally feel at peace and let the love flow for this person. And this happens through clearing our veils. So it was a long process, and I had to do a lot of healing, self-healing, healing through healing sessions, healing through my practices, begging Allah to take certain things from me, clearing my veils the way CD teaches. And once I got to that place, forgiveness was no longer an issue, because I had a whole different understanding of, quote, what happened to me. I understood where it came from, and I accepted it. So that's a summary. Now, there's a couple quotes from Brené Brown. I just listened to an interview with her a few days ago, and I wanted to throw these in. The first one is, people opt for causing pain rather than feeling it. People opt for causing pain rather than feeling it. So if we're averse to feeling our own pain, chances are we're going to cause pain in another. So this applies to the people that we feel harmed us, that they couldn't feel their own pain, and so they needed to create pain for me. And it also applies to us. If we don't let ourselves feel our pain, if we let ourselves be soft and have a cease as a vulnerable heart, then we're blocked from feeling what we're feeling, and then that whole pain is going to go into hitting somebody else. And the other thing she said is, if you don't acknowledge the pain you've caused and you don't make amends for it, there's no forgiveness. And Sidi says in one of his books that if possible, we need to go up and make amends to the person that we've caused pain to in order to get in order to have a completion with it. And this is, those of you who know 12-step, it's exactly the same. But as you know from 12-step, 12 steps like if it's in the wisdom to make the amend, to tell the person, it might not be in the wisdom. So we have to be really careful and judicious and check with Allah to see if it's better to make amends outwardly with that person or if it's better to just keep it inside. So that's all I had, and I'd like to open it up for questions and comments.
It's beautiful. Thank you so much, my sister Nora. It's amazing.
My sister Rashida.
Yeah, thank you. Any questions, beloved? Any comments? Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Alhamdulillah. It was a surprise for me how deeply I felt Allah come in to heal my unmet need. It was a real surprise.
That gives me shivers. I think you must have a lot of angels with you, and you say it and the angels start sprinkling it around for all of us. Yeah, I know. Allah's right there. He's the Kareeb. All we have to do is ask. But it really helps to be somewhat precise and to know what we're asking for, you know. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yeah, very interesting. Yeah, for me it was like more, you know, the relationship with my kid. And I was looking at the expectation, the beliefs, how I was raised, you know. I was very obedient and you listen to what you're told and all that. And it's not happening with my kids or one of my kids, you know, she does what she wants. And so that's kind of really created a clash. So it was interesting. It was like, oh, yeah, it's the belief, you know. And yeah.
As a parent, we do have a responsibility to give our children boundaries and to guide them and teach them. So it's such a fine line between where do I need to give a boundary and where do I need to let her explore and find out who she is.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's not like we find the boundary and then we've got the boundary once and for all. I think as a parent, my kids are 37 and 38, and it's a constant, you know, constantly what's being asked of me here? Do I need to give them the width of just experiencing themselves and experiencing their experiences and let them figure it out? Or do I need to say something? And then there's the thing about the timing of saying something, because it's so important that times we can't just say it when we realize it, because they might not be ready. It's like Jesus said, sowing the seeds on barren soil. So we have to say it at a time when they're willing to listen. I know with my kids, even to this day, 11 o'clock at night is one of the best times. And that's usually when I want to be asleep, but when they're the most open. That's when they come on my bed and say, can we talk? And I usually sacrifice the sleep because I want to take advantage of the moment when there's an openness there.
Right.
So anyway, the whole parenting thing, it's so complicated and it's so hard.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you. One other thing that when you talked about how we deceive ourselves, and that we don't realize who we are. And I thought about, the word like shaitan in Arabic, because that's the deceiver. And the job of the shaitan is actually to really, when you doubt who you are, like you're the beauty and you are love and you are, essentially a good person and you're noble. And then when you don't, and then you doubt that, and then you ask, Satan, and then he gives you more illusions and more deceptions, and it gets crazy, So
yeah.
That's really like that role. But it's actually a mercy, like you said. It helps us.
Thank you for bringing that in, because it's really
realize the
important. It's
beauty.
definitely a piece of it is what the shaitan's doing, the mischief that the shaitan
Yes.
is up to.
Mm.
Definitely a
Yeah.
factor here. It's if we realize that it's the shaitan, then we're like 20 steps ahead, because then
Yeah.
we know what to do. We know how to banish the shaitan.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
Siddhi's given us that very clearly, and we know we learn how to say no really strongly so that it leaves,
Right.
and then we're
Right.
in a different.
Yeah.
Yeah. The shaitan used to, it happens every once in a while now, but a long time ago when my kids were younger, the shaitan would give me pictures of them, like when I wasn't with them, of
Mm.
what they were doing or what they were really like or what their real intentions were. And it was really, really scary and negative. And
Right.
I would freak out because I believed
Yeah.
it,
I
you
know.
know, and
Terror.
I had
Terror.
to really learn to discern, you know, which of my pictures were really truth coming to me from Allah about what they really were doing,
Right.
or was it the shaitan trying to mess up my head, attributing much worse things to them than what was really going on.
Right. Right.
Whew.
Yeah.
Dealing with the shaitan is pretty much a lifelong thing. It's not, I mean, most of you know we're never going to be done with the shaitan.
Yeah.
Siddhi wasn't done with it either. We all have to
We
deal with
have
it.
a companion, Karim. He's always there. Always there.
He's always
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And
Thank
the
you for
beauty is
bringing
the
that in.
gratitude, you know, when we realize what's the lesson and
Yeah.
what's kind of was brought out for us to work on, what's the weakness. I think that's beautiful. And where we can, yeah, it's like really messed
We
up
get so
situation.
fixated on the story, you know what I mean? It's like a
Yeah.
fixation on the person
Right.
and or our kid, you know, a lot of families do it towards the kid,
Oh
you
yeah.
know, and it's so much more, there's so much more going on than that one person. And we just,
Yeah.
we can't see anything else because we're
Right.
so focused on that, what they did wrong to me. And
Right.
there's no room for Allah to give us any more of the picture, any more truth than that.
Yes. Yeah. Definitely. Hmm.
So that's,
Yeah.
you know, when I figured it out and paid attention to them, it really helped me.
Right. What's the lesson? What are we gonna? Yeah, it's beautiful. Any other questions, beloved?
Yes. Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear
Alaikum
me?
salam.
Karen, yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead. Oh, she muted. Karen.
Can you hear me? Wait,
Yes. Yes, we
you can hear
can.
me now. Okay.
Yeah.
I can't see your face, but okay. When you gave us the exercise to put somebody in front of us,
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't see the person. It was as if there was a mirror and I was seeing me, not them. No, but it was,
Allah works with you very strongly, Karen.
yes,
Astaghfirullah.
yes,
Have compassion for yourself.
no, I do. I got to see, it doesn't feel, I know it's strong, but I'm being walked very strong, and that's okay because it will pass too. I know it will.
Yeah.
But I was
Wow.
shown where those veils first began.
Wow, good for you. That's very quick. Good for you.
So thank you very much.
That's cutting right through, you know, all the way. How did your heart feel at the end about the person or whatever happened?
They dissolved. I couldn't, the more I tried to like pull them in, like really, I really tried to magnetically pull them in.
Uh-huh.
It was like they dissolved. They weren't there. It was only me.
God, that is such a teaching, Karen. That's so deep and so mystical. This is what Siddhi's saying. Everything that manifests to us is from us, for us, and is us. It's like there's just us and Allah, you know?
But first, beloved, then when I was searching and I couldn't bring them in, and it was only me, for a split second, I felt like, oh, what am I doing wrong? Like, why can't I pull this person in, which has been such a deep walking for me? I can't pull them. I don't even see that. I don't even smell them. There's like none of them exist anymore. It's only me and where it began within me and Allah.
Yeah, well, I think you understand it.
Yeah,
You seem to have the complete understanding.
yeah, I think I
Alhamdulillah.
got it. Alhamdulillah.
God, that's very moving. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, everybody. Well, we're all in this together. I always say that, but I really mean it. And I really mean it. This is a lifelong walking, and, you know, anything that was useful, alhamdulillah, and anything that's not, just, as they say in 12-step, take what you want and leave the rest. And anything that I said that wasn't according to our teachings, please forgive me.
Thank you. Thank you so much,
you.
my sister. Thank you. This was beautiful. Yeah. Everybody say good night to our sister Nura. And
Good night, everybody.
Some people were thanking you on the chat. So thank you so much. And have a great evening.
Yeah, you
Thank
too.
you, Nura.
See you again soon, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Nura, thank you, Rashida.
Thank you.
Thanks. Oh, thank you,